A Kanaka came running into my camp one day, rattling in the local tongue, gesturing towards a distant spot. There had been a salt raid by a mountain tribe upon a seaside community not far off. His description of the horrors excited everyone. I organized a party to go see what had happened. In packing and rounding up a party of Kanakas to go with me, I made sure to take along a bag of salt. That was what you traded with primarily. The New Guineans of the mountainous hinterland were salt hungry, and they'd kill for it. I saw them take a spoonful of salt and ram it down their throats as a hungry American would demolish a hamburger. You could buy anything with a spoonful of the substance, and hardly any other currency would be acceptable to most of the natives. We tramped through jungle thicket for one whole day till we reached this village. Half of the place had been burned. There were charred bodies. Guts were strewn all over. Children lay around decapitated. All had their skulls cracked open, the normal custom, for the brains were taken away and eaten. The worst sight of all was where a half-dozen tall pointed stakes had been driven into the earth. Pregnant women had been impaled on these points, the baby on top of the stake, on the sharp point, and the mother's body with the stake right through it. The flies were there in swarms working on the entrails. I knew I beheld a people of a different mentality who lived and thought as their forebears had 20,000 years earlier. I had to try to deal with them and understand them. What was it? Tribal warfare? Only two things had been carried away: women and salt, and the rest was charring and festering in the hot sun. On the way back through the jungle trail, about 4 miles from the massacre, I started at the flicker of a movement in the bush. I took out my revolver. I thought it might be one of the mountain raiders, that a new massacre of us might be attempted. I aimed at the bush and was ready to let it go when, of a sudden, the shrubbery parted and I beheld a pathetic little creature, a girl, sitting there shaking, expecting to be killed. She was absolutely exhausted, petrified, and as she looked up at me, there was a sort of supplication in her eyes, as if she anticipated death instantly. One of the boys could talk her village language pretty well. As they communicated, I gave her a long, plated stick of tobacco, an item that I used in trade sometimes. At first, she shrank back, then took a hearty bite. She had some confidence now, and between my bit of local language and the help of the Kanakas with me, we managed to convey to her that there was nothing to be afraid of. We were friends. Her face lit up, and I realized I was staring at a honey-colored girl of exceeding femininity. She had a perfect figure, and the most gorgeous pair of breasts you ever saw, the classic ski jump type, a lovely little hollow, and then the line goes way up into the air and doesn't dip. She was bushy-haired, of course, and very lightly tattooed. She wore little except the typical grass skirt, called the rami, made of pandora leaves or coconut leaves carefully interwoven. She was barefooted, and I think I liked her very much because she had no ring through her nose. It was very fashionable among the Malaysian ladies to wear rings of wild boar ivory through their nostrils, but this little one had none, and the natural beauty of the shape of her nose was unmarred. "What's your name?" "Mahaiti." I couldn't think what to do with her. After all, those raiders might return. Leave her. To what? To go back to that village where perhaps one of those women on the stakes could have been her mother or sister? I took another sharp look at her breasts and made the decision. "She comes with us." We went back, marching another 10 miles or so. My first idea was that I should send her to the authorities in caving. They would take her in, since she was probably the only one left alive. They would probably put her to work in a hospital as an orderly or God knows what kind of job. But when little Mahiti heard that I was going to send her to caving, she had a fit. I gathered from the sort of near hysteria she was in, and from what the boys said, that she would kill herself if sent there. I've listened to many female threats of suicide in my time, most of them phony. Most people who are really going to kill themselves don't say much about it beforehand. But I was quite sure Mahiti meant this. So I decided not to report her to the government, just to let her work around my place. I already had a servant in the cookhouse, and I told her to give the girl a job and train her until we could find out what should be done with her. This child became absolutely like a little puppy. She found my thatched house a haven, and I thought, why not? Besides, she was so attractive. The more I looked at her and desirability, the more I had a horrible feeling of guilt. My father, in a recent letter to me, had admonished, "My boy, always remember a man who has anything to do with a native woman stinks in the nostrils of a decent white man." Soon thereafter I wrote back, "Dad, I stink." It's true, there took place a certain struggle between conscience and me. Conscience lost. The guilty feeling was there beforehand, but the realization, of course, was wonderful. Afterwards, instead of any sense of guilt, I felt completely reconciled. I felt that there couldn't be much wrong morally, and I discovered that physically a female is a female the world over. You might as well accept yourself for what you are. I had already been wondering about the various sets of moral values that we humans put around our emotions, most of them so varying in different cultures and backgrounds. I came to the conclusion in these formative months in New Guinea that I had certain urges, impulses that were planted in me for ages, and that a relationship with a native girl was possible and desirable. Why should I follow the dictates of people who lived in other lands on the other side of the world? The conventions of mid-England could not easily hold for a vigorous young white man surrounded by feminine and attractive Melanesian girls. I've been saying Malaysian, but Melanesian. There was no love in this relationship. It was strictly biophysical. But this little girl helped much to make a man of me. She had escaped a horrible death, and she was pathetically grateful. She was a wonderful servant and my first steady affair in New Guinea. Haiti was little and probably young, though they had no conception of age there. But she was very much of a woman all the same. She was prone to the same emotion as the more civilized woman, a fierce jealousy if any other girls came around. She would pout and sulk until they left, and afterwards she had dark glances of fury for me. Why me? Why not them? Is a question I always asked myself, then and later.